What's up, sailors, and welcome back to the world of Eterna. The special day is almost upon us, and before we begin, it's time to fill your mind yet again with some combat tips to help you on your journey. Let's go ahead and start with the NPC stamina system. So even though stagger was removed, certain bigger mobs still have stamina just like us, and we're able to whittle down that stamina with light and heavy attacks. Heavy attacks plus certain abilities are capable of depleting it even more, and if you fully break it, you can knock them down. By doing this, you can exploit that weakness to knock them into a long, highly punishable reaction to dish out more DPS. And if the mob has a shield, we can break their block just like they can break ours. Some skills and weapons like the Warhammer are more effective at doing this than the others. The second thing is that the equipment load system was added a while ago, where if you wear light enough armor to be within the light threshold, you'll get a damage bonus, 20% for light and 10% for medium. Might be something to consider in PvP, especially if you're someone who focuses primarily on dueling. And for both medium and heavy armor loads, you get a duration bonus for applying stuns, slows, and roots. 20% for heavy and 10% for medium, and a block stability increase for heavy. Along with this, each weight class of armor has 3 different types of armor distribution. So like heavy armor now has the highest armor rating for both physical and elemental damage, while light armor has the lowest. This synergizes with the equipment load system to give different trade-offs depending on what kind of armor you're using. The third thing, if you get behind your enemy, you can initiate a guaranteed critical strike, and this is known as a backstab. This is useful because if you employ crowd control in your build, you can exploit the enemy weak points in PvP after stunning them, or fight mobs the traditional way in PvE by staying behind them and boss mobs as a DPS. But by the way, this only counts for melee damage, so keep that in mind. Next thing is that during combat, there will be icons placed above the target's health to indicate status effects you apply to them, and damage numbers / colors to show how much damage you're doing to them, and if it has an improved or reduced effectiveness against the target due to the attack type. If you take a close look, you can determine if the attack type is effective or ineffective through these little arrows that pop up next to the weapon damage. If the color is showing white, that mob is strong against or neutral to the element. If it's blue, that means they are very resistant to it and the arrow should be pointing down, and if it's yellow, they should be weak against it and the arrow should be pointing up. There's 4 different types of weapon damage in New World at the moment: slashing damage, thrust damage, strike damage, and elemental damage. There are a total of 6 different offensive elements, starting with fire, then lightning, void, ice, arcane, also known as empowered, and nature. And just to give an example of how this works, any mobs that fall under the corrupted category should be weak to the arcane element, resistant against ice, strong or neutral against void, etc. Also, one fun fact is sometimes skills are capable of doing different types of damage instead of the default one the weapon is tied to. If you heavy attack with the sword, for example, that becomes thrust damage, and if you do shield bash or shield rush, it becomes strike damage. And mobs can be strong or weak against these types of damage as well. When it comes to blocking, the default angle of resistance is 180 degrees, and if you're someone who tanks, shields now add additional armor to your character along with, of course, the block chance. But threat generation is something that now comes from both blocking and healing too. Several skills can also be capable of generating threat with the assistance of a carnelian gem being socketed inside your weapon. This gem has a chance to drop while you're mining ore, and by default, the sword and shield weapon has a few passives and a skill that generates threat all on its own. Another thing is that different consumable items have cooldowns for when they can be used. This means that you have to be extremely careful during high stakes combat to make sure you don't waste something that could recover your resources. For mana potions, it's 10 seconds, 10 seconds for cleansing potions of any kind, 30 seconds for health potions, 30 seconds for health regen potions, and 60 seconds for haste potions. And don't worry, they do not share a cooldown between each other. And speaking of critical hit, there's other factors that influence it besides just standing behind an enemy. First thing is that all the weapons have an assigned critical hit chance. They range from 3 to 5%, and over time in the game you'll find different perks or passives that increase both critical hit chance and critical damage. If you want to look at the majority of available perks that are possible to get in the game, head over to the trading post and click on the filter icon for it, and then you can scroll through each and every one of them. Attributes are also something that influence this, like dexterity for example will start to give you 5% chance to critical hit after you get past 50 points. And this is something you should always consider when coming up with melee DPS builds. Also, when you do get a critical hit, the numbers will pop up as orange on your screen. The last thing is that grit attacks are something you do need to be aware of. Some of our skills will generate this status, and if you get over 300 strength, your basic and heavy melee attacks will have them by default. The enemies will be doing this pretty frequently during combat too, and to identify it, you'll see a white aura surrounding them to let you know that it's a grid attack. Grid is basically super armor that allows us and these enemies to execute skills without being interrupted. Now, these are the most up-to-date mechanics of the combat system we have so far, but as we know, things are always dynamically changing with this game, so in about a month, some of this might be different. But hopefully this gives you an idea of what to expect and how to truly master the combat system. Be sure to pair this with the ultimate weapon guide I made to fully understand everything about this system, and have a wonderful night or day. And farewell.